Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Good morning to you. We're back for another Starlink launch today. It is January 20th, 2021. It's 7:33 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I am here on the East Coast of the United States, and we're getting ready and gearing up for, hopefully, another successful launch of a set of 60 Starlink satellites this morning. So there's a little bit of controversy on the naming convention. I like to mention this all the time because people get confused. This is what I call Starlink 16. Some people call it Starlink 17. It's the 16th launch of the version 1.0 satellites, 17th launch overall, because they did have a version 0.9 satellite launch with another set of 60. So there was another launch in there. We just don't count that. Or maybe I tell you that I'm a software engineer and we start counting from 0. So that launch was 0, and then this is launch number 16, and we're just going to keep going from there. So that's what we're launching today. Yes, another set of 60 Starlink satellites. So I do have a bit of bad news for you. Just a tiny bit of bad news, which is mostly personal news. Obviously, we're going to get the stream going here today. We're going to have hopefully a successful on-time launch. It's pretty much going to be an instantaneous launch window, so no chance for holds or delays today. If they do it, great. If they don't, it's moved to another day. But the bad news is that I cannot stick around for deployment today. I know, it's awful. It's terrible. What am I doing to you? So we're going to watch launch today. We're going to watch, landing of the booster. Big deal for the booster today. 8th time this booster has flown. 8 times on this booster. That's kind of crazy. So we'll go through all that, do some replays, take some questions. Deployment is like 1 hour after launch today, and I just happen to I have to go to regular work today. I have an event that I have to be at almost exactly an hour from launch. So I'm gonna miss deployment by like 5 minutes, but I can't stay with you for deployment. So we're gonna have to end it. We're gonna have to end it just a little bit soon, a little bit early, and we won't be able to show deployment today. But SpaceX will show deployment on their stream, and hopefully you'll stick with me at least for the launch and the landing and some Q&A and replays and stuff like that, all the usual stuff that we do. And we'll get we'll get the deployment on another Starlink launch. It's not like there's not more coming. So there. That's the bit of bad news for you this morning, is that I won't be here for deployment. Okay, what's SpaceX going to launch? 60 Starlink satellites again today going into orbit, and that's a good question from Caleb for us to jump in, and let's go through all our pre-flight stuff. You can get kind of a quick sneak peek at what's happening here at Cape Canaveral. This is a live shot from Florida today that's showing currently. That is oh, okay. Didn't want to stay there. Let's go back. Oh. Okay. Something's happening. I can't transition to a new scene. This is going to be a problem. Oh, there we go. Interesting. Okay. All right. I think we're okay. Let's see if it'll stay stable. Anyways, there's a live view of the launch pad right now. Beautiful morning down at Cape Canaveral, Florida. This is going to be Launch Complex 39A, the big launch pad on Kennedy Space Center property. They launched Apollo from here, launched Space Shuttle from here. Now they launch Falcon Heavy from here. They launch Crew Dragon from here, and occasionally we get some Starlink satellites as well. Weather for today is looking pretty good, actually. Let's zoom that out just one extra here. So weather for today is looking pretty good. We've only got a 10% chance of violating our launch conditions. 10% chance of violating it, and the main concern is cumulus cloud rules. The cumulus cloud rule, although I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue today, but that's the concern that's on tap for today, is that cumulus cloud rule. Remember, again, this forecast does not include booster recovery weather. It doesn't include upper level wind shear as well. Also doesn't include solar activity, not in that percentage at least. It does include it over here where they say additional risk criteria, but all of those are considered low today as well. So don't have many concerns from a weather standpoint. I think we're in good shape from a weather standpoint. So while we're talking about weather, suppose we ought to go over to our weather map and take a look at it. Wind speed right now, ground level winds, only 7 miles per hour. Nothing. No big deal. Our upper level winds, always a concern. It's a little bit concerning, but these are still pretty low. This would be high for maybe you and I if we're standing outside. Well, you go up here into to South Carolina area, you're hitting 175 mile per hour upper level winds here. That's a little bit quick up there. Luckily, Cape Canaveral is kind of on the outer band here. But we're hitting 118 miles per hour. Somebody have to convert that to metric for me. But 118 mile per hour winds here. That's in the upper atmosphere, what we consider upper atmosphere. This is right around like 12 kilometers is what we're looking at here right now, which is usually right around 30 to 40,000 feet in altitude, 10, 12 kilometers, somewhere in that range. That's what we consider upper level winds. So right now, 118, 119 miles per hour in the upper level winds, which is not too bad. Quick, but we've seen it launch through that before, so I don't have a huge concern for that, but obviously we'll hear once they go live. The clouds really was the big concern, but right now clouds are looking. Actually, let's go to this satellite map. Nothing really happening for clouds. So cumulus cloud rule was our concern, and there's nothing there. We got nothing. So that's why I think we're in good shape today. So. All right, let's go. So what are we launching today? We had mentioned that we're launching the 60 Starlink satellites. This is the current look at all the Starlink satellites that are currently in orbit. So I mention this every time we do Starlink, but we're weaving a web of Starlink satellites here around the planet. So that's how we get this full internet constellation, this full coverage is with this web that we're weaving. So we got to make sure that we have satellites in all these different channels, so to speak, make sure we have full coverage. So this is what we currently have up here. You can see kind of the web. You can also see how they come very close together up here, especially in the northern southern Canada, northern United States. We got a lot of coverage up here. You can see the lines are pretty close together on this side, pretty close together here, and then obviously right here at the top, they're very close together as well. That's why the beta test is currently running up here in the north. So they are, people are using this already. Most of it is people that are up here further north. I'm in Rochester, New York. I'm actually too far south for the beta test right now. But it's, I probably put an asterisk there that I hate that word. I don't know why I use it. I'm gonna put an asterisk there and say that there are spots where you can have coverage and then just a few miles later they don't have coverage. So they really kind of try to hone in and refine their coverage areas to say, like, all right, this is exactly where we think we have good coverage, and these are the people we're gonna let into the beta test right now. So and we're expanding as well too. They're going to other countries, and I think I saw somebody just said in the chat. So there you go, Total Space actually. Hey, Total Space. They said they're live in the UK too as well. Actually, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they were live in the UK. So, but that makes sense because UK is way up north here. So, good shape. Good for the UK. Fantastic. All right. Let's see. So, the other thing we were going to say, obviously you can see big gap here. No polar coverage for Starlink. Not yet, at least. They've talked about they're going to have polar coverage at some point, but no polar coverage right now. In fact, we may see polar coverage as early as tomorrow. Or wait, when did Transporter get moved to? Did it get moved? It got moved to Friday, I think. So Transporter 1 is the next SpaceX launch, and Transporter 1, it got moved to Friday. That, I believe, has some Starlink satellites on it, or at least they were trying to get some on it. That's the next launch. I haven't even prepared for any of that yet, but they were trying to get some Starlink satellites on that, and that's going into a polar orbit. So maybe we start to see some Starlink satellites go a little more higher inclination here as early as Friday. That'd be kind of cool. All right, so then as far as launch today, this is the path that we're going to be on today. This is pretty typical for all of our Starlink launches here. So launching, generally they'll launch from either Launch Complex 39 or 39A or from Pad 40, and so we're launching from 39A today, which is the big one right here. So launching from here, heading up. Powered flight is the red sections, coast phase is the gray sections here. So here's where your separation is right there. Separation of the first and second stage. Second stage continues on to orbit. First stage coming back. Eighth time this first stage has flown. 8 times. This is going to be the 8th flight here. It's pretty exciting. We get an entry burn here, and then obviously our landing burn out here in the ocean, and hopefully it lands again for the 8th time. Second stage is going to continue in this northeasternly direction here. Then it heads around and comes down and goes southeast and puts it into the orbit that we're going into. Hazard map for today, we'll take a look at that here real quick as well, just so you can see. So here's our hazard map. We can see our drone ship, which is the blue pin out here, fairing recovery operations, which we might see today. We might actually get to see it today. So fairing recovery operations would be at the green pin, drone ship at the blue pin. Pretty close together, but heading to the northeast. And then I think we have it, yeah, right here. Here's the second stage re-entry area off the coast of Australia, down under, going down under Australia. That's where the second stage is going to come, break up in the atmosphere and into a million pieces. It is not recoverable. So there. I think we covered everything, right? Did we get it all? I think we got it all. Record time today. There. I want to make sure I got all my stuff. I did everything. I did it all. Yeah. Okay. Great. We did it. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's we'll grab a couple of questions here, and we'll see what's happening. Where is SpaceX? Let me make sure. Let's see if they're live yet. Where is my SpaceX feed? It's around here somewhere. I got so you guys ought to see all the monitors and windows that I have open while I'm doing this, because there's a million of them. Oh, are they live? They are live. All right, so they started already. Did they just start? Did we just miss it? Okay. They've been going for a couple of seconds. Look at that, perfect timing. Okay, well, I guess we won't get to your questions, at least not right now, because SpaceX is already live, and we got Jessie Anderson is talking with us here. We'll get her up on the screen, and let's listen in and see what's happening with SpaceX. That was pretty quick, and I'll read some questions. I'll jump in when I get a chance to as well, but I want to listen in to Jessie, and we'll see what's happening with Starlink today.
Constellation, we can bring high-speed internet to places that previously had terrible service or no service at all. While this is our first Starlink mission of 2021, it is also notable because we are attempting to fly and land a Falcon 9 first stage for the 8th time, a first for Falcon 9. This booster debuted on our Demonstration 1 mission in March of 2019, and then flew again 3 months later on RADARSAT Constellation mission. In 2020, it supported 4 Starlink missions, as well as the SXM-7 mission at the end of the year. And we will be attempting to recover the booster again on our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions, and that's what you see on your screen, stationed off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. If we are successful, it will mark the 72nd recovery of our Falcon 9 first stage. Falcon 9 was designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment between each flight, and today's flight gets us closer to that goal. Currently, we're at T-minus 14.5 minutes, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff at 8:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's take a closer look at the rocket that you see on your screen. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9, our 70-meter two-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle. The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at T-minus 38 minutes. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes, And currently, our rocket-grade kerosene, or RP-1, is nearly fully loaded on the first stage, which is the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle. The first stage is responsible for accelerating the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines. Now, directly above the first stage is the black carbon fiber interstage, which you can see there at the bottom of your screen. And connected to that is the Falcon 9 second stage. Second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine. And once the first and second stages separate about 2.5 minutes into the mission, the MVAC engine will ignite for its first burn and then shut down for coasting. Today, we will be performing 2 second stage burns and deploying our Starlink satellites at approximately 1 hour into the mission. The 2 burns allow us to deploy our satellites into a circular orbit, which in turn helps them get to their final orbit much faster. Now you'll notice this large nose cone at the top of the rocket that you're looking at on your screen. This is called the fairing. That's where the stack of Starlink satellites is safely housed. The fairing protects the satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during ascent. As you may know, space is a vacuum, so we will jettison the fairing halves to reduce some weight as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. Today, we are using flight-proven fairing halves, and Miss Tree and Miss Chief, which you are looking at on your screen, we'll be attempting to recover them by wet recovery, meaning we will be retrieving them from the water.
Bummer, no catch
today.
The
weather is looking 90% favorable at the launch site, which you could see that beautiful view there with a slight chance of cumulus cloud development this morning.
Not a cloud in the sky right now.
At a recovery site in the Atlantic Ocean, ground level winds are in the forecast today. Now, these winds are potentially stronger than what Falcon 9 has experienced on previous flights. Therefore, today's mission will be what we call an envelope expansion on our first stage landing wind performance, meaning we are going to test the wind limits of our vehicle upon landing.
Oh, interesting.
Now, with that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
What are the landing winds? So they said they're going to test the limits?
Since
oh, yeah, look it up here.
In November of 2020, we've brought Starlink to a handful of new communities in the U.S., Canada, as well as the United Kingdom, which we're really excited to tell you about. In Canada, we signed our first customer, the Pikangikum First Nation Reservation, which is located in a remote area of Ontario Province, Canada, about 300 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg. The Pikangikum First Nation are an indigenous community of approximately 2,000 to 3,000 people, representing 400 to 500 family households. The area is so remote that for the majority of the year, all shipments are sent via chartered airplane, except during the coldest weeks when trucks are able to travel across ice roads to reach the community. Given the remote and terrain challenges of the Pikangikum First Nation, it is cost prohibitive to update or lay new infrastructure. Our Starlinks were delivered to the community for use in residences, community buildings, and businesses. Here's a look at how Starlink is positively impacting the Pikangikum First Nation Reservation.
Oh, all right, so they got some music there, so we're going to turn that down. But we'll have, I don't have the rights to play their music, but we'll leave them up so that we can see what's happening here. And at least you get a sneak peek at some of the pictures. I'm trying. Yeah, okay. I was just going to turn it up a little bit and see. Unfortunately, they're actually doing some talking about the remote area here that's they're getting some Starlink internet service to. See, this is pretty awesome about Starlink. Like, you get to serve these areas where they just have nothing. There's nothing there for high-speed internet service, which is really difficult if you're going to try to run a business, or you've got some sort of online services you're trying to do, or even if you just want to watch Netflix or something. Like, you need some sort of high-speed internet to operate so many things in today's world that this is going to be pretty awesome to see. I mean, you also get people that have only one internet service provider in the area. Maybe they only have DSL. Maybe they only have cable, but their cable provider is, the prices are through the roof or something like that, and they can get you Starlink service for a little less expensive, similar speeds, things like that. So there's a lot of cool options for that, but also some of the more exotic stuff like this I really like. You get remote coverage in the areas like this, but you'll also be able to get coverage, in the middle of the ocean that's, on an oil rig, on a drone ship maybe, because there are Starlink there are Starlink dishes right there. We can see the Starlink dish out on the drone ship. So there you go. There's the Starlink dish. If you want to know a little bit more about that, I just did one of our Tuesday videos 2 weeks ago. We did about some of the Starlink features. I talk a little bit about that phased array antenna that they use for Starlink. Look at that, 120, 130 megabits per second. There you go. That's cooking. 130 megabits per second. I mean, you can get better than that, but like that's pretty good. Especially if you're, I mean, my download speed is like 400 megabits per second. So I got better than that. But if your download speed in a remote area like this, you could have, 20 megabits per second if you're lucky. And bumping up to 130 is like, that's huge. That's awesome. So anyways, this one in 2 minutes. I'm not sure what that is. 4 times faster than my rural connection. Yeah, see, right? 130 megabits per second. A lot of rural areas. Actually, so I said I have 400 megabits per second. If you drive like 5 miles from where I am, not very far, like literally 5 miles from where I am, your only option is DSL, which is like 20 megabits per second, maybe 25 or something like that. And that's all they've got. And that's just 5 miles from where I am here in the Rochester, New York area. Let's grab a couple questions. This will never replace my fiber at home, says Brandon on Facebook. Yeah, this is not going to be a fiber replacement. Any of these wireless services are probably going to struggle to replace a fiber optic connection. So this is not meant as a fiber connection, meant as a fiber replacement, but definitely is maybe like a DSL replacement if that's all you've got. So let's grab a couple else. Weather looks nice. Winds. Oh, winds. Good mention on the winds. So they're going to test the wind envelope here out at the landing. So you can see right here, we're 7 miles per hour at the launch site, but out here where the landing is, we're at like 26, 28 miles per hour. So they're going to push the limits today on landing. So maybe we get a little bit of a nail biter on landing. That'll be kind of exciting to see what's happening there. Obviously, we want to make sure that we see the booster get recovered, but looks like they're going to try to push the limits a little bit today.
Rural community who otherwise would have limited access to high-speed internet. And lastly, earlier this month, we expanded our Better Than Nothing beta program to include customers across the pond in the United Kingdom. Within the northern US and Canada and now the UK, we are focused on rural and remote areas where there is no easy access to fiber or cable. If you're interested in our service, head over to starlink.com for more information. We are currently just under T-minus 6 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. Our next event will be the transporter erector, or TE, retracting slightly away from the vehicle at T-minus 4.5 minutes. Now, the TE is that large trusted structure that you can see right behind Falcon 9 on your screen. We use the TE to roll the rocket out to the pad and raise it to its vertical launch position. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until Falcon 9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. At liftoff, it will retract even further in order to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent.
I can hear the pad mics already. That's good. Hopefully we're in good shape today with pad microphones. Love those sounds. A couple times they've turned them down like right at launch, or maybe they got overloaded or something. I don't know.
25 seconds away from that TE retraction. You could see those white clouds around Falcon 9. That's what happens when the LOX hits the ambient air there.
And I missed this one from earlier, but hey, Carrie Ann, thanks for the super chat there. Saw Carrie Ann sent over a cool super sticker. Thanks, Carrie Ann. Appreciate your support there. Forgot to mention that earlier while I was chatting it up.
Here.
So we're going to get a nice little early morning. Oh, listen to that. Oh, did you hear that? That was nice. I like it. I love like a... Yes, now we're getting some pad microphones. Oh, I could listen to this all day. I'm just gonna stop talking for a little bit. The Dragon is...
what you're looking
it's
at
not the
on
Dragon,
your
the Falcon is breathing.
Is the top of the vehicle. And that transporter erector should be retracting here soon. And there you can see it on your screen. It looks very slow and very slight, but there it is moving back. Now the first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Super chilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer, and as I just mentioned, it's what's creating those white clouds that you can see right there on your screen. That happens when it's exposed to the warmer ambient air. First stage should finish prop loading in a second here, and second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 is in startup, and what that means is that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. Now they'll light the Merlin engines at about T-minus 2 seconds, and liftoff will be commanded at T-minus 0. We use T-Teb as our ignition fluid, and when it mixes with oxygen, it burns a green-colored flame, so you might see a green flash near T0. We then allow fuel into the thrust chamber, and the engine comes up to power for liftoff. Now the Starlink payload continues to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is looking great, as you can see there on your screen, and the range is green for launch.
Weather does look great. Keep an eye on that water tower that's right there. Right when we get towards launch, you're going to see the water tower is going to overflow. That's intentional. It'll start spilling water out of it. That's how you know the thing's full and ready to go for launch. It's the water for the water suppression system.
T-minus 2 minute mark.
Station locks close out.
And there's that call out that LOX load is complete on both first and second stage.
And the water
Just about 15 seconds or so, we will start venting out the transporter erector liquid oxygen line.
There you go, last
there
big vent here.
you can see on your screen those white clouds. As I mentioned, this is the venting, just clearing out the line on the transporter erector.
Last big vent, that's all that smoke-looking stuff coming out there. Oh, that scared me. That was loud.
Now in about 15 seconds or so, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and stage 1 and stage 2 will begin pressurizing for launch.
That was really loud. Here we go.
And Falcon
9 in startup.
We'll see the water tower
call-out.
overflow,
Falcon
maybe?
9 is in startup. Now we're waiting for the go for launch from the launch director in a few seconds here.
Yeah, if you're wearing headphones, here's your warning. It's going to be loud.
Starlink, Falcon 9, LD is go for launch.
Go for launch. Here we go.
And there's that call out that we are go for launch this morning. So at T-minus 30 seconds, all systems are go for launch. So let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our Starlink satellites into orbit.
Stage 1 press for flight.
Hey, Adam Farmer, thanks for becoming a member. Appreciate that.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
Here we go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Nominal.
At T plus 40 seconds, we've got a beautiful view of Falcon 9 successfully lifting off.
Telemetry is nominal.
from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit. And we are throttling down the vehicle, the engines, in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent, so slowing down the vehicle helps us pass through the short period.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we've passed through max Q. Now, in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening. That'll be main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, stage separation, and SES-1, which is second engine start 1. Now, MECO is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. And that's where the first stage separates from the second stage. First stage will start making its way.
Back is chilling.
MVAC
First
is
stage will start
chilling.
making its way back to Earth for landing, while second stage continues on its journey with the third event, which is SES-1, or second engine start 1. And that's where we light up the MVAC engine, and it propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. We've just got some awesome views on the screen.
So MVAC chilling. They're going to run some of the liquid oxygen through
Such
the
a
lines
beautiful morning.
of the
We're
second
just about
stage.
15 seconds away from those 3 events: MECO, stage separation, and SES-1.
So they run some liquid oxygen through the engine in the second stage to get it ready so that you don't have thermal shock when it actually does ignite.
And MECO.
Here we go, separation.
Stage separation confirmed.
There we go. Ignition. Stiffener ring's going to break off the engine bell. Right there.
And back ignition. And throttle up.
And there you just saw MECO and stage separation on your left-hand screen. On your right-hand screen is the second stage. We're waiting on fairing deploy coming up here shortly.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Here goes the
And
fairing. There's our
there
satellites.
You could see the fairing halves have been deployed, and you
Ooh,
can
look at
see them
that.
falling back to Earth. And with that stage separation, that confirms the 8th successful flight for this Falcon 9 booster on ascent. So very exciting. And as a reminder, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our recovery ships Mystery and Mischief.
Out of the water, though. No catch. They're going to soft land them in the water and then pluck them out of the water. No catch today.
Now, as Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. And that first burn is called the entry burn. That's where 3 of the 9 M1D engines will reignite. And this
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters into the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, I
The
think we're
second
seeing
and
some
final
space
burn
mice.
for the first stage is the landing burn. Each of the M1D engines has 190,000 pounds of thrust, which is just enough to slow down the vehicle rapidly to touch down for landing, as the landing burn is just a single engine burn. And again, this is the vehicle's 8th flight, so it is our life leader. It has completed a successful ascent and stage separation, so let's see if we can land it for the 8th time, which will be a first for Falcon 9.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
There we go.
You heard that call out that both vehicles are nominal. We're just a little over a minute away from that entry burn start on the first stage. And what you see on your screen is a view looking forward on the left-hand screen. Now we've changed to the looking aft on first stage. And on your right-hand screen is a view of that MVAC engine on second stage. That second stage engine, that MVAC engine, has a thrust of 220,500 pounds of thrust in a vacuum. It's a pretty powerful engine there.
What is the stuff flying around when you said space mice?
We're
So
just about
there's
20 seconds or so away from that entry burn on the first stage. You can see those grid fins are deployed, helping to steer the vehicle. And we do use nitrogen gas burst for attitude control.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
So there's a liquid oxygen vent right above the engine bell, and when it vents, some of the liquid oxygen solidifies, and it gets caught on that
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
that giant pipe there, and we call that the space
There's
mice.
that call out and visual of the entry burn on the first stage on your left-hand screen. So it lasts about 20 seconds long.
We'll talk more about space mice after landing here.
Stage 1, entry burn, shut down.
And that concludes the entry burn on first stage. And as a reminder, at our recovery site in the Atlantic Ocean, ground level winds are in the forecast today. These winds are potentially
clouds
stronger than
coming
what
up.
Falcon 9 has experienced on.
Follow nominal trajectories.
There's just a call out that everything is nominal. These winds are potentially stronger than what Falcon 9 has experienced on previous flights. Therefore, today's mission will be what we call an envelope expansion on our first stage landing wind performance, meaning we're going to test the wind limits of our vehicle upon landing. So let's see if we can stick this landing today. Again, it also will be the 8th landing if we do land this vehicle. And we're just about 30 seconds away from that landing burn start on the first stage. And what you're looking at on your screen is a nice view of the second stage.
This is going to be the nail
Still
biter
looking
moment
nominal.
here. They're trying to land it in high winds that they don't normally go for. So high wind landing, going to be a bit of a nail biter. We'll see if she can do it. This is the flight leader, 8th flight for this booster. Potentially the 8th
Stage 1,
landing.
landing burn, startup.
There's that call out.
There you go.
Landing burn has started on first stage.
No view of it.
Let's see if we can
Terminal
stick
guidance.
this landing.
Come on, stick it. You got
View
this.
of the drone
High
ship on your
winds.
left-hand screen.
High winds. Uh-oh. What's the big splash? Oh, that might just
Stage
be the
1, landing leg, deploy.
It might just be the boat. That's okay. Oh, she's shaking. She's shaking. Come on, stick it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Looks
Oh,
like
no.
we lost that
Oh,
live
no.
view on
No.
the first
What?
stage. We'll wait for confirmation. And
Yeah.
there you can see on your screen, we have landed the Falcon 9 for the 8th time. This is our life leader. What an amazing morning. That is an awesome view. And we're just waiting for Seco 1 on second stage.
Sweet.
And Seco.
And there's that call out for Seco 1. Waiting for confirmation of good orbit.
Nominal insertion.
And there's that call out for good orbit on second stage. What an exciting morning. We've landed that first stage for the 8th time. And now that second stage is going to
Position
coast.
of signal, Newfoundland.
Second stage is now going to coast in this orbit for the next 35 minutes or so. And while that happens, take a look at this. The animation, we'll have an animation showcasing where we are in the coast phase. So we'll see you back here at T plus 45 minutes for that second stage relay.
All right, so there's they're going to throw their music up, so I'm going to turn them down and throw ours up instead. But there it is. We launched, landed the first stage booster. Fantastic. That was great. Had some decent pad mics. They were pretty good. They seem to pull down the levels on those right at launch. I wish they would just leave them cranked. Like, I just want to blow out my speakers with that launch sound. But it was all right. It was pretty good. We do have to talk about the space mice because a lot of people are confused about that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Look at this view here with the satellites. Doesn't that look awesome? Look how fantastic that is. Wish they would stick with that one right there. But while they got some of these feeds up, we'll watch them and kind of switch around while while they're showing those. But yeah, we do have to talk about the Space Mice. We'll do a little bit of a replay as well on the launch. Just as a reminder, in case you weren't here at the beginning of the show, bad news is I can't be here for deployment. I do have to wrap up the show a little bit early. I've got some time, you know, I've got about half an hour or so before I have to jump out of here. So pretty much right after the SECO 2, which is the second stage relight and cutoff, that's done. I gotta book out of here. So sorry for that, but there'll be another Starlink launch. There's lots of them, so we'll do more. Whoa, what was that? What did we just see on screen? I just saw that out of the corner of my eye. What was that? It's a UFO. What time was that at? Did anybody else see that? I don't know what time that was at. I should have looked. Oh, right there. Oh, okay. It's just a little piece of, I don't know, piece of something. Ice, debris. What is that right there? It just looked huge because it's so close to the camera. Yeah, it's just a little tiny piece of something. No big deal, but that was interesting. All right, let's see. Now my clock's gonna be all askew from theirs. Let's see. Let me fix that, and then let me grab some questions from you. We'll see what your comments were. I saw them all flying by, but I try not to interrupt in the middle of their spiel there because I don't want to interrupt them. Let's see. We gotta go the other way, I think. Like this. There we go. We're pretty close. That's gonna be close enough for my book right there. Okay. Just wanted to get that updated. All right, grab some comments. Let me read back through some of these, and should we do a replay in the meantime, or you guys want to see these views from space? Get my events list out of the way. It was clearly a giant space rat flying. That's probably what it was. Either that, or it could have been the space lobster.
Space lobster ate the T-Tub. That's the answer.
Right? Could have been space lobster. Replay. Everybody's saying replay. All right, maybe we'll do the replay because we'll have lots of time to look at this stuff. But I love this view of the Starlink satellites. One thing we probably should talk about. So the way the Starlink satellites deploy is pretty cool. And since I won't be here for actual deployment, we should probably talk about it now, since we won't be here. But so there is no spring pusher for the Starlink satellites. They don't get pushed off the front of it. There's a long pin that holds all the satellites in place, and when it gets time to release them, they do this little bit of a spin on the second stage. They release the pin. They just let go of the pin so they're not held anymore, and that spin causes them to separate from the rocket and space themselves out. So right here, there's nothing pushing them apart. It's just this spinning motion here where the satellites will space themselves out, because the satellites that are on the outside of that circular motion will be traveling just slightly faster than the satellites on the inside of that circular motion there. And that's because they're covering a different distance in the same amount of time. So the circle on the inside, the satellites that are going around a circle on the inside, they cover a smaller circle in the same amount of time that the satellites on the outside are covering a bigger circle. So the ones on the outside are going slightly faster. Here you go. Robert Sutton says, I call it spin and unpin. I like it. Spin and unpin. There you go. So that's the idea. They just release that pin and away they go. They space themselves out. And also interesting, if you watch my Starlink video from 2 weeks ago, we talked about how the Starlink satellites, basically they do their own navigation into their final orbit. So once they do separate, they wait till they get some space apart. They get their antennas, or their solar arrays unfurled there and spread out. And then they get themselves into their final destination orbit. So they start in a lower orbit, and that's to make sure that they can check out the satellites, make sure all the systems are working, make sure they can communicate with the ground. If they can't communicate with the ground, they're going to automatically deorbit. It's going to deorbit. And once, as long as they can communicate, they'll continue on into a higher orbit, but they stay in that lower orbit so that if they don't communicate, then the deorbiting happens faster. It's going to deorbit. When does the second stage return and break up in the atmosphere? Usually it's on like the first or second orbit after deployment. That's when the second stage will deorbit. So the second stage will deorbit and come back and break up in the atmosphere. That's not something that will stay up there, particularly for this one. It's not always the case. Sometimes they go to a disposal orbit, but in today's case, this is for all the Starlink launches, really, this one will deorbit. It's going to deorbit. What is the ring we see when the second engine starts? So that's a stiffener ring on the outside of the engine bell. It just keeps the engine bell, those engine bells are really thin, so it just keeps the engine bell stiff and rigid so that while it gets loaded into the interstage there, and when it comes out of separation, that nothing happens to the engine bell. So it's just a stiffener ring to kind of hold it in place, and once the second stage starts up, that stiffener ring breaks off and becomes debris for a couple of hours, and then that also deorbits from orbital decay. And because that's also happening early in the flight, so actually it doesn't even go into orbit. It's going to be suborbital because that happens pretty right after separation. So it's not orbital at that point; it's suborbital. So that'll be debris. It's not even probably for a couple hours. It's probably debris for a couple of minutes, and then comes back, and that'll also burn up in the atmosphere. It's going to deorbit. Let's go back and see a couple others. Are you an engineer? I'm a software engineer. That's what I do. Let's go back to this this view here. And why don't we do a replay here? While we're waiting, we'll get our replay text up. And I'll turn the volume up. Let's turn the volume up for launch, and then I'll turn it back down after a couple seconds after launch.
So let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our Starlink satellites into orbit.
Another headphone warning for you. It's going to be loud.
Stage 1, press for flight.
Minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Transmission downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus
All right,
40
there's our
seconds, we've got
there's our launch here. We'll keep the replay going, but I'm going to turn them down.
Entry is nominal.
A couple people have asked where, or I saw one person ask where the camera was on the rocket. So there's a camera on the interstage, right on that black section there. There's a little camera housing that just sticks out a little bit has protection, and then the camera kind of points downward. And then there's cameras on the second stage near the engine area at the bottom of the tanks there that point at the engine. So we can't really see the second stage cameras at this point of the flight. We never see the second stage cameras actually because they're covered here, and then obviously once it's in space, we're seeing what the cameras are showing, not the cameras themselves. What are these satellites? This is internet communication here. So these are providing broadband internet service for the entire world. The purpose of Starlink, so we have internet satellites right now. They're in geostationary orbit, very far away, high latency. Takes a long time to make a round trip communication with a satellite in geostationary orbit. So it has to go all the way out to that satellite, come all the way back. High latency, not great for speed and performance. The downside, if you want speed and performance, you got to bring the satellites closer to Earth, so you have a faster round trip. But the downside to that is if you're closer to the geostationary satellites, they just stay in one spot in the sky, so you only need one satellite to service all of North America can be serviced by one geostationary satellite. And but if you want to bring them closer to Earth, satellites are going to fly by faster. They're not going to be stationary like they would be way out there. So that your orbital period when you're in low Earth orbit is once every 90 minutes. So you're going around the planet every 90 minutes. When you're in geostationary orbit, your orbital period is once every 24 hours. That's why you go around the planet every 24 hours. So you're going around the planet in the same amount of time that the planet is going around. So that's why it's basically stationary. So these are coming a lot closer, but they're only overhead for like 5 minutes, and then they're gone. So you need lots of them. So it'll go overhead, and then the next one will be right behind it, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And you're just constantly communicating with new satellites. Every 5 minutes, you're picking up a new satellite as it flies overhead. So throughout the course of the day, you're going to communicate with dozens and dozens of satellites that'll provide you your internet service. So that's why they need so many, but they'll be closer to Earth, faster latency, faster speeds, high bandwidth. So you've got a lot of options there. Saw it from my yard in Cocoa. Never gets old. That's awesome, Weldon. Glad you got to see it. I can't wait to get back down there. I think Brandon over on Facebook asked if I was ever going to get back down there and see another one. I will at some point when things get back to normal, but not anytime soon. But I'll be down there again at some point. Did they switch the camera on landing? I thought the sea wasn't that choppy on the other camera, perhaps just from another angle. Yeah, there's usually 2 cameras on the drone ship, one at each end. So they do switch back and forth. It's hard to tell because they almost look exactly the same. But yeah, there's 2 different cameras. One, they're basically pointing at each other here so they can flop and switch back and forth. And they break the 180-degree rule of filmmaking. Anybody that's a photographer or videographer that knows the 180-degree rule. Doesn't apply to space flight. We're planning a team trip to the Cape in 2022. You should come join us there. Yeah, let me know, Total Space. Let me know when you're going there. Maybe I'll join you. Sounds like fun. How do you apply to be an astronaut? Generally, they put out calls when they're taking a new astronaut class, and you can just apply. You get a lot of applications, but they're usually you have to have some sort of specialty in order to be an astronaut. So a lot of times it's going to be there's a whole class of like scientists. You could be biologists or chemists or anything like that. There's scientists that can go up as mission specialists, and then there's also like pilots and engineers and things like that the pilots was kind of the early thing that we did back in the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo days, but now it's a lot of mechanical engineers and a lot of basically STEM careers. Any of those engineering careers. You can be computer science, any of that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different area. I mean, you'll be trained to be an astronaut. You don't have to know how to be an astronaut to be an astronaut. Like, that's what they train you to do. They train you to be an astronaut. But will this web be on Mars? Not right now. There's no plans right now for Starlink on Mars, but Starlink does help fund some of the Mars stuff. That's a little bit of the idea behind Starlink, is to help fund Starship and things like that. A bunch of people asked about Starship SN9. We're waiting on a static fire from SN9. They still haven't completed the new static fire after they replaced 2 of the engines on the Starship. So we're waiting on that. Might happen today. And then maybe a flight on maybe Friday. If it happens today, we'll see. All right, so we lose. So you got the first stage coming back in. You see those clouds coming up. I love how fast the clouds come towards the camera. It really gives you an idea on the speed right here as it starts plowing through towards the clouds. We always lose the first stage booster there right as it's breaking through the clouds. The only time we usually get the booster as it breaks through the clouds is when it does a return to launch site landing, which we don't get a lot of those, but that's when we can see it break through the clouds, which is always kind of fun. But not today. We lost the camera feed, which is pretty expected. Remember, it's going pretty far out, so it's tough to get signal from there. And then they eventually switched to the drone ship view. Drone ship. I don't know. They have Starlink antennas on the drone ship. I don't know if they're using that as their primary communication method for these video feeds, which would be kind of nice because. So we talked about it in the video, my Starlink video that I did 2 weeks ago, but they're phased array antennas, which means the antenna itself can rapidly change the direction that the antenna's pointing. So if the drone ship starts shaking the antenna can, in theory, I mean, it takes a little bit of time. There's some logic and be a little bit tough, but in theory, the antenna during this phase right here,
I say we as in the royal we. I
don't could. Oh. I have like NASA. I got NASA spaceflight playing or something. Where did that come from? I heard Doss's voice. Where's his voice coming from? Lost the feed there for a second. There we go. So I was gonna try to turn that up, but I'm getting a. Let's see. Let me close some of these windows because I'm. Somewhere. I got Doss's voice from NASA spaceflight. I don't know. I don't even know where it's coming from. It's just I'm hearing Doss in my ear. Let's see. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. That's gone. So I meant to. What time are we at? We got some time here. So let's go. Let's back this up. Let's listen in. Right as the landing was about to happen.
There's a view of the drone ship on your left-hand screen.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
So we lost the feed there, so obviously...
Looks like we lost that live view on the first stage. We'll wait for confirmation. And there you can see on your screen, we have landed the Falcon 9 for the 8th time. This is our life leader. What an amazing morning.
Looks like dead center,
that is an
too.
Awesome view.
It's pretty...
And we're just waiting for Seco 1 on second stage.
That's pretty much dead center in the drone ship, right? Let's see. Does SpaceX need some ground antennas to communicate with the satellites to actually get access to the internet other than the antenna the customer is going to have? So I believe that they are they have their own antennas that are communicating with Starlink as well, because they're doing pretty frequent updates to the Starlink constellation in general here. I'm gonna switch to this view. So they did that again. Why is it? I don't know what's up with that. That's kind of weird. Okay. They're performing updates to the Starlink constellation on like a weekly basis. So they do have their own communication satellites or antennas that are sending that kind of stuff to the constellation. What I don't know if they're just using the regular ground stations like customers have. I feel like that wouldn't. My sense would be no, and I would think that they're going to use their own, sort of high-powered antennas for something like that. But I don't know the answer to that. The satellites are supposed to be able to do inter-satellite communication. The early versions of the satellites did not have those. I believe they do now. Does anybody know that for sure? I know the early ones did not have the laser interconnect from the satellites so that they could all communicate with each other, but I think they do now. And down in Boca Chica, they have some pretty enormous antennas down in that area that do a lot of their space communication stuff and tracking. So I would think they'd use something like that for their communications, for software upgrades and things like that, but I don't know for sure. All right, let's go back to the live view. How far are we? Now my timer's off by a couple of seconds. Let's see if we can fix that here. We'll get them up to so that we match up with SpaceX's timer is. Could there be a launch while the Daytona 24H race? Yeah, I don't see why not. There's no reason why you couldn't launch while, you know, if there's a race at Daytona. They could do that. Do you know Spanish? Marco wants to know if I know Spanish, or do I speak Spanish? I don't, Marco, sorry. I do not know Spanish. No hablo español. That's all I know. When's the next Falcon Heavy? So the next Falcon Heavy is coming up, but it is going to be later this year, I think. So it's gotten pushed out a couple of times, but let me see. Next Falcon Heavy is now pushed out to May 2021. That's the United States Space Force number 44 mission, USSF 44 mission. Is going on a Falcon Heavy in May of this year. So that's our next Falcon Heavy. But it is coming up a couple months from now. Then there's USSF 52, which is scheduled for potentially July. You've got Viasat, which is potentially scheduled for October. So we could have a couple of Falcon Heavies coming up this year. It's kind of exciting. There's some more on the schedule as well, but they're years off. We've got August 2022, couple of Falcon Heavies, 2 more. We've got one in 2024, one in 2026. But looks like we got potentially up to 3 Falcon Heavies this year. Let me grab a couple other questions before we go on. There you go. Total Space says, if you're watching Starship views, you can see a SpaceX-owned ground station near it sometimes. Yeah, those are the ones that I was mentioning that are in Boca Chica. Two years ago, we feared losing the booster. Today, we fear losing the signal. Yeah, it was a little bit of both today because they did that high wind landing. Total Space sent me a DM on Discord. All right, I'll check that out. Just in case you're not aware, for anybody that's interested, you can join our Discord. It's free. There's no cost to it. Join our Discord, chat it up with our members, join our community. Join Discord, hang out, chat in between launches. And then for anybody that wants to take the extra mile and get access to the secret Discord channels, consider becoming a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member for a little extra access. Like Gary Bosher did. Gary, thanks for becoming a channel member. I see Gary Bosher just joined in, became a channel member at the Rocket Engineer tier. That's where secret access to Discord starts. So Gary, if you join Discord and you connect your YouTube and Discord account together, then you can get access to the secret Discord channels. So thanks, Gary. Which is pretty much where I hang out. Most of the time, I do hang out in the regular Discord as well. But you'll find me more often there. All right, when will Boeing try again for the uncrewed flight test? I think that's coming up in April, is when the OFT-2 test is coming up. So that's Boeing's redo. Actually, March 29th is what it's currently scheduled for. March 29th, so almost April. March 29th is what OFT-2 is scheduled for. So that's the redo of the Boeing Starliner uncrewed orbital flight test. They're gonna have a redo on that because the last one didn't go so well. Any news on SN9? Waiting on a static fire. That's what we're waiting for. Hopefully today, and maybe a flight on maybe Friday. We'll see. May launch falls on my birthday. That's awesome, Katie B, one of our members. Thanks, Katie. I'll have to remember that so we can say happy birthday to you. When do you think Starlink SN9 or Starship SN9 will launch? Maybe Friday. We gotta wait for that static fire. That's the big thing. Any bets on how many sats will be on the next Falcon 9 flight? So I think they've got approved 10 Starlink satellites for the Transporter 1 mission. So I think they're adding 10 Starlink satellites to the mission that's flying on Friday, which is the Transporter 1 mission. Let's see. All right, so we've got, how much time do we have here? We still have we got another 10 minutes. So we got time. I was going to start another replay here because we've got some time. For anybody that missed it, we'll do one more replay, get the sound up. And again, in case you weren't here at the beginning of the broadcast, let's see, not this view. I want this view. I do have to head out. I won't be here for deployment. We're going to watch SECO, or the second engine start, SES-2 and SECO-2, and then I have to leave, unfortunately. I have to go to my regular job. I do have a regular job outside of this. This is not my full-time job. So I have a regular job that I have to get to as a software engineer, and I have to go do my software engineer stuff. I have a meeting I have to go to, so sorry. But we'll have to leave a bit early today.
Starlink satellites into orbit.
And here we go. Let's get this up. Turn the volume up.
Stage 1, press for flight.
Minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Switching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 40 seconds, we've got a beautiful view of Falcon 9 successfully lifting off
Telemetry is nominal.
from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit. And we are throttling down the vehicle, the engines, in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent, so slowing down the vehicle helps us pass through the short period.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we've passed through max Q.
All right, so while this is...
In about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening. That'll be main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, stage separation, and SES-1, which is second engine start 1. Now, MECO is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. And that's where the first stage separates from the second stage. First stage will start making its way...
Back is chilling.
First stage will start making its way back to Earth for landing, while second stage continues on its journey with the third event, which is SES-1, or second engine start 1. And that's where we light up the MVAC engine, and it propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. We've just got some awesome views on the screen. Such a beautiful morning.
All right, I'm gonna turn them down here. We've got a couple more minutes. We only got maybe like 3 minutes or so, three to 5 minutes before I have to head out. So we're gonna try to see. I wonder, can I even get? I may have to leave sooner than that. Now that I think about it, I'm looking at watching the clock and going like, all right, I need to end this soon here. How come the fairing halves don't burn up at re-entry? So there's a couple reasons for that. One, the fairing halves are not traveling. They're not traveling that fast, right? So they are traveling as fast as the first stage booster is, but they're still not traveling that fast. Like the second stage hasn't kicked in really that much. They jettison right at the beginning of the second stage, so still not a ton of speed, but they are still going at the time of jettison. You know, they're going, what is this, 8,200 kilometers per hour? Right here, here's your separation event, 8,300, right there, 8,300 kilometers per hour when they're jettisoned. But they have a huge surface area. So as they're coming back through the atmosphere, even the upper atmosphere where the air is very, very thin, they can start to slow down a lot more gradually and, you know, have this huge surface area to slow itself down a little more gradually. The booster, on the other hand, is this very streamlined type look, and that's, you know, punching through the atmosphere. That's why it comes through much faster. So the fairings, bigger surface area. It's kind of the same idea behind Starship, which is going to do that belly flop maneuver when it's going to basically, my Starship model's not glued together here, but the Starship is going to kind of plow through the atmosphere like this to increase that surface area and help use the atmosphere to slow it down. That will create some atmospheric heating, and there is atmospheric heating that the fairings go through as well, but it's not, you can survive that. The Starship is going to need it because it's going to be coming through at orbital speed, so they're going to need heat shield tiles to burn off a lot more heat than the payload fairings would have to. But also, because it's that big surface area and it's all gradual curves, there's nothing like really punching in from the atmosphere at a heating standpoint. So you can really destroy your thing, if you destroy your object, whatever it happens to be, if you have a sharp surface where the atmosphere can get right in there and kind of punch in. But with the payload fairing, because it's this big curved section, big surface area, the atmosphere can roll off pretty well, heats up, but not enough to actually burn it up and break it up. So there's that. The lower pressure thrust exhaust looks like an octopus when it fans out. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the video yesterday, but yeah, there's as it gets in that upper atmosphere, that exhaust plume fans way out, and you can kind of see each little finger of all the Falcon 9 engines. Here's our space mice that we were talking about. Oh, of course, they switched the camera right at the last second there, but right in here, it's on the other view. It's a little more visible on the other side of the, here you go, right here. You can see all the solidified, right there, that's the space mouse right there. You can see it looks like it's crawling across the piping there. It happens on every single launch. It's the most well-trained mouse I've ever seen. But we call it the space mouse because on Demo 2, you got a lot of people that don't follow rocket launches very often, and they were all watching. Let's see, we might have to go back to, yeah, because we're very close to, might have to go back to live. Because what time, yeah, we're coming up, we got like 1 minute till SES2. So on Demo 2, there are a lot of new people that had never watched a rocket launch before, and they saw that solidified oxygen, and it freaked them out, and they thought that basically that a mouse had gotten on board, and it was proof that the whole thing was fake. Look I can see a mouse, it's proof, it's fake. Well, that mouse appears on every single launch. It's, like I said, it's the most well-trained mouse I've ever seen. It's solidified oxygen from the vent port. So that's the space mouse that we talk about. Oh, there. I turn that up so that only I can hear it when they come back. We're expecting SpaceX to come back any second here. Quick burn. It's only like a 5-second burn, and then we're gonna end it here. But poor mice just want to get back to Mars to pick up their motorcycles. The ice mice. Oh, here they are. They're back.
We had an on-time liftoff this morning at 8:02 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by the completion of the first 8th flight and recovery for this booster, which is a first for Falcon 9, and despite those stronger winds. Today marks our 65th landing of Falcon 9 and 72nd successful recovery of a first stage. We're now just waiting for the relight of our second stage, or SES-2, coming up here in a few seconds. It'll be a short 1-second burn. Just waiting for that call out.
Should have already happened here.
Again, it's just a 1-second burn, so it's very quick, but it does go a long way for this second stage.
Just waiting on confirmation that it actually happened. No
Nominal orbit insertion.
There we go.
And there we heard that call out for good nominal insertion. Again, we just had SES-2 and SECO-2, just a quick burn of that second stage engine. We have another 15-minute coast phase before we deploy our next batch of satellites into orbit. And during this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. While this happens, sit back and enjoy the space jams. We'll see you back here at T plus 1 hour and 4 minutes.
All right, so that is that's going to be it. If you weren't here at the beginning of the broadcast, unfortunately, bad news for you today. I can't stay with you for deployment today. Like I said, this is not my full-time job, and I have to go to my full-time job. I have a meeting that I have to be at today, and I have to be there in 10 minutes. So I have to leave for today, unfortunately. Obviously, if you want to see deployment, SpaceX is still live on their channel. You go youtube.com/SpaceX, and you can actually see the deployment, which is going to happen in about 15 minutes. So, like, I'm going to miss the deployment by just 5 minutes. I was like, how can I make this work? But it just wasn't going to happen today. But don't worry, there's lots of Starlink satellite launches coming up. We'll be here for more coming up in the future. And there's Transporter 1 coming up on Friday this week. And potentially Starship SN9 might be Friday as well. We don't know. We'll see. We're waiting on the static fire for Starship SN9. So that's the update and where we'll be. So we got more coming up this week. Looks like Friday will probably be the next time that I see you. But yeah, I'm sorry to just book out of here like this. But like I said, I do have to go. I got to wrap up the stream, which takes me about 5 minutes, and then I got to get to my next meeting, which is in 10 minutes from now. So again, sorry for all that, but thanks for joining us here today. Consider joining the Discord. That's free. There's no cost to that. There you go, Sebi dropped the link in the here. I'll throw this in Facebook as well for anybody that needs a link to. Oh, that didn't work. I think I don't know if that link. I don't know if that link works here. Let's see. Let me see if I can get this here real quick. Oh, nope, that's not gonna work. All right, well, I can't link you to it. I tried, but I'll do it while the outro's playing, and I'll drop a link in the comments there so you can see it. So, all right, that's going to do it for me, guys. Again, sorry to just book out of here in a hurry, but I got to go today. Work is calling. All right, thanks, everybody. My name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon. I'll see you Friday, maybe. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Mm-hmm.